Hello, I'm John. Welcome back. So I've got 3 books to share with you today, and I am about 15 books behind in my, somewhere in there, 14 or 15 books behind in my reading update videos. So I'm trying to figure out how to catch up. I thought about just doing them all in one video, but I can only say a little bit, and my videos go on and on and on. I ramble. So anyway, I'm just going to get to it. I enjoyed most of these. So here we have 20th Century Ghosts by Joe Hill. Joe Hill is, of course, the son of Stephen King. And I said before that I felt bad for sort of not giving Joe Hill a fair shake, for thinking of him as the son of Stephen King and, kind of pigeonholing him in that role. And I wanted to give him a chance. And I was thinking about, like, you know, if, say, my dad wrote books, there's no way that I couldn't be influenced by the books that he wrote, but I would have my own take on things, right? Especially once I finally found my voice as a writer. And so I figured that's probably how it was with Joe Hill, and I think that's a pretty good call. So he's heavily influenced by his father, and there's no way he couldn't be. But he has his own spin on things, his own take on things. He has his own voice. And I really, really enjoyed this collection. There's some really interesting stories here that, like I said, are reminiscent of the stories that his father writes. But there's a story called Pop Art, which is about a boy who, his best friend is an inflatable boy. He's a sentient balloon, like a sentient inflated boy. And their time together and what that's like for him. And uh, that was really interesting because he has to be wary of everything, of sharp objects and floating away. And there is one about a boy who wakes up in the morning to find himself transformed into a giant locust and what that's like, and sort of how he goes off the deep end. There's another about a guy walking home after being fired from his job, and he discovers a woman who is in the middle of committing a crime, a heinous crime, and how he deals with that, and also this terribly awkward spot that it puts him in. And there's another story about a man recounting his brother's. His brother builds these really amazing structures with cardboard in the family basement. And it becomes an obsession with him, and he does it, and he makes all these really interesting shapes and things. And at the same time, the boy gets into uh, this sort of bad friendship with another kid, and they commit a crime. And the boy's brother builds, I don't want to give too much away, so I'm trying to be careful, but he deals with the subject. He deals with this bad friend, not really a friend, uh, sort of somebody who takes advantage of him and stuff like that. So how he deals with that and how that ultimately ends. And I thought that was really, really interesting. That was very much like a Tales from the Dark Side or something like that. So there are several stories in this. There's one about a guy who has the ability to fly and how that affects the people around him. Now, some of these stories, at the end, I didn't always agree with the ending of these stories. It seemed like they would be going along fine and then just kind of drop off, like the characters would do something you really didn't see coming. And I didn't always agree with that. I thought that was um, sort of overdone in that it happens in quite a few of the stories, but also uh, I just didn't find it necessary, I guess. But that was really my only quibble. I really enjoyed this, and I enjoyed the way that Joe Hill writes. So I don't know if I'll go on to read his novels or anything like that, but I really did enjoy these short stories. Now, the next one I read was by Charlotte MacLeod, writing as Alisa Craig, is A Pint of Murder. So this is a cozy mystery, I guess. It's an old lady who is kind of estranged from most of her family. She lives in a big house, like a big mansion, and this takes place in a small town in Canada in the 90s, early 90s, I think, late 80s. And of course, it's idealized. Very much a small town mystery where everybody knows each other and stuff like that. Um, I always kind of find that overdone in stories like this, to the point where, I didn't really experience that growing up. I live in a city of over 20,000, so uh, you don't know everybody. Even sometimes the people you do know, you don't know them very well or anything like that from around town. You just see them every now and then. So that always kind of hits me as Mayberry-like, I guess. But so the old lady is found dead, and everything seems normal, but she has a sister in town who is married to a doctor, and she has a niece, or maybe it's that she has two nieces. It's been a little while since I've read this, and that's my problem with this book. It was convoluted. It was tedious, and there was too much going on, and there was too much of, well, I'll call up my sister's niece's boyfriend's aunt who wore this dress at this party when she baked this pie, and that was just tremendously overdone and tedious. And that is a pitfall of this kind of writing, where in the desire to make the small town cozy mystery, it becomes tremendously tedious about how all these people have interconnected lives and how they all know each other, and how everybody knows that the one lady wore these shoes to that event and she never wears these shoes anywhere else but just to this one event. So there are several people who could have killed Agatha, and it all hinges around the fact that she didn't eat any food except that which she canned herself. She had a garden, she canned her own vegetables, that's all she ate. And her neighbor, who was basically her only friend, comes over and sees something is not right in her basement where she keeps these jars of food. And it all hinges around the way that Agatha canned her peas. And that's what the mystery hinges around, and it is very convoluted. And they bring in a inspector from, let's see, okay, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So he's a Mountie, but he's an inspector, and he shows up undercover, and his cover is blown almost instantly because everybody knows everybody. I liked this book. I liked the plot of this book. I liked the characters of this book. I just didn't enjoy the way that it was told. It was just, like I said, it was tedious, and it was hard to get through. And if I'm being honest, I don't think that the payoff was worth it. It was, everybody wants Agatha's money or her house, and she hasn't gotten along with her niece in a long time. They haven't spoken for like 30 years. And then the other niece that comes up to visit her, she just wants the house and the money, and just kind of pretended to be Agatha's friend. And at the same time, the doctor who came up to examine Agatha at the house, he winds up dead, and so that adds to the mystery. And of course, the inspector and the Agatha's young friend, young neighbor, they sort of start to be attracted to one another, and that was okay. I didn't mind that. That seemed pretty organic, to be honest. But everything else was just like, oh, can we move on, please? Can we stop thinking about the dress that she wore at the the family reunion 16 years ago, please. Oh, anyway, I have another one by Charlotte MacLeod. I'm not sure if I'll read it, to be honest, because it was an ordeal. Okay, it was an ordeal for me. So the next book is DEFCON One by Joe Weber. And the best way that I can explain this is that it's like a Tom Clancy novel without all the bloat. And in my opinion, it was pretty good for being what it is, which is kind of an exploration of, it's a very typical late 80s novel of, so in Russia, in Soviet Russia, this is not the beginning of a Yakov Smirnov joke, in Soviet Russia, a old, sick, hardline Stalinist has become the Soviet premier. And of course, he wants to return Russia to being a Stalinist paradise. He thinks everything has gotten too soft. This is very typical of these kinds of books from the late 80s and 70s too. And he wants to have a nuclear first strike on the United States. And he's going to do that by ramping up tension between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, and then saying, oh, well, we were just screwing around, basically. This is a big misunderstanding. And once they lower the DEFCON, I think DEFCON goes backwards. So 5 is the lowest, and 1 is actually war. And once they lower it back down, the Soviets are going to strike. And this is about the people who are trying to figure this out, figure out what's going on. It's about, we get to see into the Politburo, the upper echelons of the Soviet government, what's going through this guy's head, and what's going on in the American government, how they're reacting to this, thinking, what are they up to? What are they doing? You know, how are we going to respond to this? And the Soviets just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And at the same time, there is an American spy in the Kremlin, and it's his story of escaping from Russia with this information, because he hears, he is installed as, basically as the butler of the Soviet premier. And he overhears this plan that they have hatched to destroy the U.S. And he needs to leave immediately. And yeah, like I said, it was like Tom Clancy without all the bloat. So recently I DNF'd Clancy's Clear and Present Danger, which is the second time I tried to read it. The first time I tried to read it, I was in 6th grade, and I made it further than I made this time, which is unbelievable to me, but it's the honest truth. I made it almost 250 pages this time, and it just went on and on and on and on and on, and it's like, please, Tom, can we get this moving? You know, this didn't have any bloat to it at all. This was just straight story, straight plot, and I really, really enjoyed it. So that is 3 books, and so 3 down, something like 11 or 12 to go. I'm working on it. You know, I try to do these videos, and sometimes I just don't feel up to it. I don't always know what to say. I think I'm doing better than I used to do. I'm still a little bit nervous about doing this, because I realized that when I started doing this, I was not very good. And I hope I'm getting better. Oh, there you can see my notes. My notes are starting to fall out. I use these little mini legal pads, and I write notes. And I actually wrote these so that I could read this before I started this video. And I entirely forgot. So I just winged it. In fact, I think I did it for all these, and I didn't read the notes for any of them. So I hope I did all right. I want to thank you for watching. Please feel free to leave a comment, and I'm going to try to catch up on some things here, and I'll see you next time.